And Josh Allen, more like Jake Allen. Am I right, fellas? Oh, yeah. The Bruins kind of suck again. It might be time to sell the farm.
This is hockey right here.
Bruins! Whoa! 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 Whoa!
Welcome to the Garden Level Podcast. Dan Conlon, Cam Stuart, home of the AFC East champion New England Patriots and the 7th place in the Atlantic Boston Bruins. Dan, great week in the sense that there was Christmas. Bad week in the sense that we root for the Bruins and they're not very good anymore.
Yeah, if you asked for the Bruins playing better and making the playoffs for Christmas, you did not receive that.
Santa just gave you two of these, if that's what you were looking for, which is kind of what we were looking for. But maybe we shouldn't have been looking for that. And that's kind of what today's episode is about. You know, we talked last year about a tank when things were getting out of control. We went into this year thinking it was going to be a tank. And then we got the wool pulled over our eyes a couple months. Like, man, this is fun, right? Like, they're playing a good brand of hockey. We like Marco Sturm. We like accountability. We like they're getting in some fights. And it turns out they're actually a not very talented team that is kind of regressing to the mean here with 5 straight losses. But it is worth noting that this is episode 13 of the Garden Level Podcast. Last week, we had a great discussion. You, me, Eamon McLean got in on it. For the great number 12s in Bruins history. Not so much the case this week. Dan, only 9 players have worn number 13 for the Boston Bruins. Your favorite is?
I'm not going to go with the crowd favorite, Charlie Coyle. I'm not from the South Shore, so I'm not going to take him.
That's good.
I don't want to take it from you if that was your choice, but I'm going to go with the most recent one that done it. He just got assigned to Providence, so he'll be playing with Matty Pacha and Fabian Lysell for the rest of the year. But I'm going to go with my guy, Blumel.
Matej Blumel.
Did not get the jersey yet.
Not yet. Man, I really thought Matej Blumel had a role to play on this team. I was texting you from Warrior a couple months ago. I was like, this guy's going to be here. He's practicing second power play, staying after practice, he's doing all these tip drills. I'm like, they're going to find a spot. Like, he's got the most goals in the AHL over the last 2 seasons. He's Czech. Pastrnak, loved him, advocated for him to be on the team. Turns out he's probably what we would call a quadruple A player in baseball. I'll go with the crowd pick. I'm a South Shore guy. I'll go Charlie Coyle, a guy I've looked up to for a long time. Originally was number 3 in his other stops, now number 13 with the Bruins. South Shore guy, Weymouth. You know, a lot of South Shore guys have played in the NHL, but they're Situate, Norwell, Hanover, Cohasset, these really nice ritzy towns. Weymouth is not that. Weymouth's a lot more like Rockland than it is Hingham. So I was really excited to have someone who is not only from the South Shore, but not from the glitz and glamour of the South Shore, so to speak. Charlie Coyle fit that. Great South Shore ties, BU player, and was so excited when he came to the Bruins. And obviously, did a good shift with the Bruins. Was a big part of 2019. A big part of why they got to the finals, had an OT winner in the playoffs that year, and was a dependable player for the next 5 seasons. Was he prolific? No. Had a 60-point year in there. By the end, you were just probably asking too much of him with the talent around him, and that's why you needed to trade him. But boy, did that trade yield something great, which we'll talk about later in the show. That could end up being Charlie Coyle's parting, kind of gift to the Bruins. And it does suck that he didn't win the cup. That was the guy, maybe more than anybody outside, I guess, McAvoy and Pastrnak, that I really was hoping would win the cup in 2019. Local guy would have taken it back home, playing for his hometown team.
Where was he? Where would he take the cup in the South Shore if he had a day with it?
I mean, Weymouth. I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know what the pizza place would be or something like that. What's cool about Charlie Coyle's career, by the way, is so if I have this correctly, if I've remembered this correctly, I should have looked it up again to confirm, but he played his freshman year of high school at Weymouth High. And if you're playing, no matter how good your public high school program is, which Weymouth is not that great, but if you're playing public high school, you're not playing in the NHL. So he then goes 2 years at Thayer Academy, which was playing for Tony Amonte. And that's where Ryan Whitney went. That's where Brooks Orpik went. Like that's where you go if you want to play in the NHL. And then his senior year, he went back to Weymouth High. Just wanted to play with his friends. They're already committed to BU. And so he did that. He played at BU, left after the World Juniors the second year, back when you could do that. And so like he's just kind of a bro, man. Like just kind of a dude's rock kind of guy. So I don't know, probably the Cameo Theater, the like 120-year-old movie theater across from where I grew up going to church in Weymouth. They got a hospital there that I was born in. Maybe he brings it there. I played lacrosse with his cousin actually at Rockland High. So his aunt, Charlie's aunt, and this kid's aunt runs the food bank in Weymouth that my dad volunteers at. So maybe brings it there. We'll never know. We'll never know. Some other great number 13s in Bruins history. Grigorgis Pantelejevs, if you're into that guy. The Rat, Kenny Linsman. That's a decent one. Glenn Metropolit back in 2008. And arguably the best GM in the NHL, at least the hottest GM in the NHL right now, Worcester's own Bill Guerin. Wore it for 2 seasons with the Bruins. That's it. Not a lot of good number 13s. Bill Guerin, of course, who sabotaged last season for the Bruins by hiring shoddy team doctors for Team USA and ruining Charlie McAvoy. At least that's what Don Sweeney thought. And obviously, Billy G will be running Team USA for the Olympics this year. But let's go back to the Bruins here. It's 5 straight losses. Is that right? And it's been 2 weeks since won a hockey game.
It's feels like 2 weeks. I'm not sure if exactly 2 weeks. We've lost 5 straight, so I believe it's around 2 weeks.
Yeah, Utah on a Tuesday, and then they lost to Edmonton on the Thursday. I think that's right. So the Bruins have not won a game in over 2 weeks here, and it doesn't look like it's getting much better, but for the fact that they're facing some bad teams out west. So Dan, like let's address the elephant in the room. Is this just what this team is, what we've seen the last 2 weeks?
I think this is what we thought they were, and now it's coming back to reality. I think everything's coming back to earth right now. The numbers were bad. Like the 5-on-5 play has been bad pretty much the whole season, but their special teams, their power play was top 5. Their PK was top 10. They were doing so well with special teams. That was what was keeping them in games and winning some games. And they had great goaltending for a few weeks span. And then, it kind of added up. And after a while, you kind of can't get away with the things you were getting away with for a few weeks. And unfortunately, we've seen the past 2 weeks, this team is it's been a roller coaster so far this year, and I think we've kind of just plateaued to the bottom. Like the roller coaster is going down right now. We're not going. There's nothing really going up for a while.
But that's not the fun. But that's the fun
drop.
part of the roller coaster. That's the fun part. This is not the fun part right now.
No, it's not the fun part. But we're excelling with a lot of things, and now you've seen the overall numbers at 5-on-5 how bad they were. And we've had some mismanagement from everyone. The coaching hasn't been great the past 2 weeks. You had that controversial, why didn't he challenge that against the Canadians? Why didn't he challenge the first one, and then he challenges the second one, which he shouldn't have. So there's been some mismanagement, bad roster construction at the top, and we've had some injuries too. But that's not an excuse. But overall, I think this is the team that we thought they were going to be, and Bruins fans kind of got their hopes up. They got some false hope, but if you're a Bruins fan, I hate to be that guy, but I said it before the season. I think this is I think what we did last year is a great blueprint for what we should do this year. Call me a bad Bruins fan if you want, but another top 10 pick, possibly two, that would help Pastrnak's prime more than going out and losing to the Lightning or the Panthers in the first round this year. So I think we should keep losing. You don't actively root for them to lose, but don't get that mad when they don't win. And see what's going on in World Juniors right now, and just kind of realize there is some benefits to losing in this league.
That's a good point, which we're going to talk about later in the show. The World Juniors is really showing you kind of what's capable if you just eat a season or two like this, at least a season or two. You brought up like being a bad fan. Do you think you're a bad fan for wanting the Bruins to not be very good?
I don't think I'm a bad fan for wanting the Bruins to lose. I think it's what's in the best interest of this team. You don't have to go to every Bruins game and yell hit them, and root from the score goals and do
Shoot.
all that stuff that fans shoot it, and pay your hard-earned dollars to the Jacobs who don't want to make any changes at the top. So I think if you're a Bruins fan, you root for the best. You want the players to do well, like rooting for Geeky to get 50 goals. Like that's something you should keep rooting to do,
Mhm.
because it's something you want to see your players get better and work towards something in the long term. And in the short term, you don't have a good team, and you got to look at what's the best way to get the Bruins back to where they were at. And if you think it's like signing free agents, like if you think signing like another Lindholm or look at the free agent class this year. Like it's every good player is resigning. Like the
Yeah.
way to get good players is through the draft and through some good trades. Like right now, if you want the Bruins to try to make the playoffs and then sign someone in free agency, you're most likely going to see them lose in the first round and then sign someone like Alex Tuck, who I like, but there's rumors that he wants $10 million
10 million. But yeah, 10
a
million
year,
bucks.
and that's just terrible. That's 1 million less than what Pasta's making. So I think the best way to win, you see a lot of teams, they do bad for 2-3 years and they get good draft picks, they get superstars they could pair up with. And I think if you have Pastrnak playing with Hagens and another top 10 pick, who, whether it's a forward or defenseman, I think that benefits the team next year and through the long term more better than just losing in the first round. So it's it's a good debate. You never really want to actively root against your team, but I think all the smarter fans and intelligent fans know what's at stake at the end of the year if you follow the draft and see what's going on in juniors and in college hockey.
Yeah, see, like I'm kind of with you. Like rooting for this team to tank, I don't think makes you a bad fan. If you're paying attention when it's bad and it's hard to watch, then I don't think you could be called a fake fan. Yeah, like if you're at the game and you lose in overtime or you lose in the dying seconds, you give up a goal in the third period and you lose 4-3. Like I'm not cheering, right? I'm not doing that, but like at some point it is smarter for the Bruins to lose. And that sucks. And it's again something we're still not really used to. But we talked about this towards the beginning of the season, Dan, where you look at the last couple of teams to win the cup, right? Or the teams that get there. Like Florida, Aaron Ekblad, number 1 pick, Sasha Barkov, number 2 pick, Matthew Tkachuk, obviously not their pick, but top 5, top 10 in the draft. What's funny about them is they have a couple other high picks that someone else made for them, right? Seth Jones and Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart. But like Edmonton, Draisaitl number 3, McDavid number 1. Colorado, Makar was in the top 5. I think he was number 4. McKinnon was number 1. You go back to Tampa. It happened a while before, but Stamkos was the number 1 pick in the draft. Hedman was a top 5 pick. You got a diamond in the rough, Kucherov. But like what I'm saying is Vegas, number 2 pick, Jack Eichel. You've got to have a guy that's high end that was taken as a high end commodity. You got to go back to maybe the 2011 Bruins, maybe the 2008 Red Wings to find a team that didn't have something like that. Like that is the kind of the price of doing business in the NHL. And if you want to get back to where you feel you belong as the Bruins and a big organization, you've got to embrace it. You hope it's 2 or 3 seasons rather than what the Blackhawks are doing, and trying to figure out in the 6th or 7th season, or San Jose trying to figure it out in the 6th or 7th season, or Philadelphia. But you do have to suck at some point. You do have to suck a little bit. And like you said, we knew there wasn't a lot of talent here. This is the talent gap kind of rearing its ugly head. And it's been bad the last couple of games, right? 4 unanswered in the third period against Montreal. 4 unanswered after taking the lead against Buffalo. And to add to that, Dan, you look at that game against the Canadiens, they lost. And looking at that night, Ottawa lost because they played an in-division opponent. But looking back, that was the 23rd, Tuesday before Christmas. Toronto won. Detroit won. Buffalo won. Florida won. Obviously, Montreal won because they beat you. Like everybody else in the division that played won. And so that's where you're talking about a night where, it can't all go wrong in one night, but you're 2-2 going into the third period at home. You lose by 4, and 5 teams in your division win that night. That's the margins that we're talking about for a team that's not very talented, that can snowball, and everybody else has gained a leg up on you. And when we were talking last, they were in 3rd place in the Atlantic. Now we sit there. Only Toronto is worse in this division, and that's only by 1 game with, I think, a game in hand. So this is how quickly it can drop, especially in this ultra-competitive division.
And another reason why I would say, just to go back to, do you want the Bruins to make the playoffs, just losing like in the first round, or try to make a run? And the NHL playoffs, anything can happen, really. Like if you have good goaltending, if Swayman plays lights out, you can make a little run. But have you seen the way the Bruins have played against good teams in the past month? I think I said in the last podcast, like the last game where I was like impressed by who they beat was back November 15th when they beat the Canadiens. Like that was a great game to watch, and you felt good after that one. But after that, they've beaten the Jets without Hellebuck. They've beaten the Devils without Hughes. You
I think
beat
they
the
beat
Utah
Detroit
Mammoth.
in a
Yeah.
shootout. Like
You're beating some banged up teams, and you play the
Mhm.
Senators and the Red Hot Sabres. The Sabres have won 8 straight. The last time they won 8 straight, Bruins legend Vladimir Sobotka was on the team. That's
I
a
can't wait for
throwback.
episode 60 to talk Vladimir Sobotka, man. I can't wait. And by the way, that place was juice the other night when the Bruins
I
were in
know.
town. Like that is the one that Buffalo fans kind of had circled, right?
Mhm.
Of like right after Christmas, Saturday night, can have a big crowd in there. They're streaking, and Bruins played a good first period, took the lead, and then to your point, playing a good team. Let's be honest, that's a good team. They've been talented for a couple of years. They're playing like a good team. It fell apart. They smashed the Bruins.
And when I went to Buffalo in October just for the Bills Patriots game, if you've ever been to Buffalo before, you see how passionate they are about the Bills. It makes you think, like, if they had a good hockey team, like how big that market could be, and what those fans could fill that arena real quick. But they just have been miserable since the Danny Briere days. So that's a throwback name. But he's with the Flyers now. He picked Martone over Hagens. Hopefully, he doesn't regret that.
Yep.
But
Love that, Danny. Thank you.
It'll be interesting to see how the Sabres season plays out. If they can sustain this, or if they're just going to be the same old Sabres. But it helps the Bruins. If you want the Sabres to do well, if you want a higher draft pick. So yeah, like you said, we're just don't play well. It's a good team, then I think that just further shows, like, why do you want this team in the playoffs? You're gonna get a pick in the teens. You're probably gonna lose in the first round, and we don't draft well after pick 16 or 17. We were lucky to have a good pick to pick Hagens, but when you have to go off board a little bit, when there's not enough players that are good enough that just fall in your lap, that's when you pick the Zach Sensions, the Johnny Beechers, the Trent Fredericks, and I don't want that to
Malcolm
happen again.
Subban.
So the higher, Malcolm Subban, Fabian Lysell. So the higher the better. I think it's less likely that he'll screw up that pick if it's a top 10 pick, and you can pick players that are. This is a bit deep draft, so uh, if you get a top 10 pick, you can get a top 4 defenseman or a top 6 forward, and we'll see how that goes. But hopefully, hopefully the Maple Leafs continue to do bad as well, and hopefully we hit on one of those 2 picks.
Leafs are almost doing too bad right now. They're tanking too hard. Obviously, top 5 protected. It's kind of crazy. I do. That is something we'll have to keep an eye on the rest of the season. Obviously, with Toronto, like we're rooting for them to lose, always. Doubly rooting for them to lose when you have their pick, but they're almost being too good at it right now. For me, the reason the Bruins are losing so much right now and why they're reverting to the mean here is kind of an interesting one because, like, obviously you look at the roster and anybody who's not watching these games is going to say, well, that's why. Like, look at it, right? Look at who they're putting out in the practice lines before they play the Flames here. As you know, that's when we're recording. You got Alex Steves on your first line. You know, you've got Pastrnak playing with Fraser Minton and Marat Husnudinov. Of course, that is why the Bruins stink, right? But to me, it's kind of not. The reason why the Bruins stink, because they've had lines like this all year, okay? They've had lines like this all year, and there's been times they've played some damn good hockey. The reason why the Bruins stink, they can't stay out of the box. Like, you're just in a point where you have no margin for error when that's your roster. But when you go to the box as much as they do, you have no chance. They lead the NHL in penalties. 195, by the way. Tampa is second, which is interesting because they're a wagon. And they're right behind you at 190. Calgary is third. Calgary's awful. They're third at 173. So 11 minor penalties behind you. And we talked about having top 10 units earlier in the season, both special teams. Now you're in the middle of the pack on your penalty kill, probably because you're on the penalty kill like half the game. It's 16th in the NHL. And you need not look any further, really, than Nikita Zadorov. First in penalty minutes last year in the entire league. First in penalty minutes this year in the entire league. And so, Dan, this is a guy that we both really like. I've got a Zadorov jersey in the closet. We've both been, vocal about how much of a help we think he's been to the Bruins this year in terms of forming their identity, showing some leadership, and playing good hockey. But you know what you're getting from this guy. He's going to lead the league in penalty minutes. So is that just a case of like we're dying for a big physical presence and we're willing to look past that for Zadorov? Does he hurt them more than he helps them?
I think he helps them more, but I think he made a joke about it earlier in the season when he said, like, my penalty minutes are low. I gotta get those up. I believe that was around the Islanders game. When the Bruins play well, he takes less penalties. And I know he likes to get the guys going, but I think this was a perfect example last year. I think I said earlier in the year too. When the Bruins are playing well this year, Zadorov and McAvoy were a great line. He's one of your best defensemen. He's someone you want on the ice. He's not someone. Obviously, I love his Zadorov fight more than the same as the next guy, but he's someone you kind of want on the ice, like 20 minutes a game. You don't want him sitting in the penalty box. And when you're on the PK, he's someone you want on the PK instead of, if you have to stick Lowry out there if you need a guy. So I think Zadorov kind of thinks he needs to step up and be physical and fight people when the Bruins are doing bad. And when the Bruins are doing bad, which has been recently, and they were really bad last year, he just puts it in his own hands to try to pump up the team and get in a fight, or he plays a little bit more physical and takes a stupid penalty. So I think if the Bruins had a good team, his penalty minutes wouldn't be as bad because he wouldn't feel the need to do these things. And I think as a team as a whole, and not just Zadorov, you just have to draw the line of what's it being hard to be a team to play against, like, and not taking stupid penalties. Like, there needs to be a line there. And right now they don't know where that line is, but you got to just be disciplined. And I think the Panthers do a good job of that, where they know exactly what buttons they can push, what in a legal way, and they know how to get on the power play. They know how to get on your skin, and they're doing it in a smart way. And that's how they've been good. I'm not comparing us to the Panthers, but I think that's a good, kind of example for the Bruins, like how you could be tough to play against, but not be in the box the whole game.
Yes, because to go off that point, like the team that led the league in penalties last year was the Florida Panthers, right? But there's two parts of this that go directly to your point. First off, they started taking penalties at a much lower rate in the postseason, so there's number one. And number two, that's a team that's like the victim of their play style, right? They're super aggressive. They're super aggressive on the forecheck. They give up odd man rushes. That leads to more penalties. But they're such a good penalty killing unit. They've got a good enough defensive structure and good enough players up and down the lineup. Like they have good enough depth to the point where they can take a lot of penalties and still win. The Lightning, it's the same thing. When you don't have depth, that doesn't work. When David Pastrnak is far and away your best offensive talent, and he doesn't do the penalty kill. Morgan Geekie doesn't do the penalty kill. You're just taking opportunities for those guys, just taking them off the ice for 195 times already. Like you can't live like that. Most teams can't. The Panthers can, the Lightning can, the Bruins cannot, the Blackhawks cannot, the Penguins cannot, the Sharks cannot, and that's the kind of company this team is keeping with. That's the company they kept last year. It's the company they're keeping right now. And I think honestly, that's the biggest problem. And I when I watch this team, I think their penalty kill looks better than the 16th best in the league. But Dan, this might sound crazy, but when you just continue to give up penalties, your team is not going to be as good on the penalty kill. You're just giving them more opportunities. And back to the Panthers point, this is not the product of, the Bruins just play so hard and they're so physical and they play on the edge that they're bound to take penalties. Like, no, these are just stupid penalties. They're stupid tripping calls. That Alex Steves one the other night was horrible, right? Victor Arvidsson, after you've given up a couple of goals in a row, you give up a double minor in Buffalo. It's not because they're racking up a lot of fights, which they are doing more than almost anyone in the league. It's not because they have a super aggressive forecheck. They're just taking lame penalties all the time. And you're just taking Morgan Geekie and David Pastrnak off the ice. To me, that is the biggest issue.
And like going back to what you said about Geekie and Pasta not being able to, kill penalties, I think that goes down. It kind of relates to roster construction. And the Bruins were spoiled for over a decade having Bergeron and Marchand on their PK, two of the best PK killers to do it for the Bruins. And they were on their top line and they were killing penalties and they were on the power play. Now you don't have that. Bergeron is retired and Marchand is winning cups in Florida now. So instead of having your top guys kill penalties and do everything, you got to sign bottom six guys like Corrali, and you got to
look in a trade. Yep,
Kastelic in a trade.
Who we but it goes to your point. Yep.
But it's like it affects how you construct your roster, and it makes you have these bad signings where it's like our top guys can't do it, so we have to go out and pay these bottom six guys to do it, and that means we can't call up our younger guys. So I think it creates a whole roster log jam with how you construct your roster, and hopefully, I mean, at this point, Pasta's not killing penalties, but maybe Geekie can kind of get better at that, and who knows with what our roster is going to look like next year. But yeah, it affects the whole way you construct your roster if what your good players can do on the PK and on the power play.
I mean, that's exactly right. Like that's exactly it. Like, and that's why we're bitching in July about a 5-year sheet with Tanner Jeannot and a couple of years to Sean Corrali while Matty Poitras still hasn't played an NHL game this season. That is why. And part of that is on Patra, the player, the prospect, obviously, because Minton can do it and has earned his way into the team every night. But part of that is, the guys who you're building around. And that goes back to Florida, right? Like in a normal year, last year, let's say, their penalty killers are Brad Marchand and Sasha Barkov. Pretty good player. I think Reinhart was playing some PK for them last year in the playoffs. Like when you can roll those guys out there, that's Lundell is an underrated guy like that. That's a different story. And you're right. The Bruins, they can't do that. They can't afford that. I do want to talk Pastrnak a little bit though. Despite scoring the other night in Buffalo, I would say David Pastrnak is clearly not 100% healthy again. And we flashed it up earlier, but the lines in Calgary, he's there on the third line with Fraser Minton and Marat Hustantinov like that. That is not because they're looking for a different look for David Pastrnak. It's because they're trying to get him on the ice a little bit less, take a little bit off his plate. I get it's kind of a stupid question to ask, like what this team would be without David Pastrnak, even though they had a nice little stretch without him last month. They're a really bad team without David Pastrnak for any significant amount of time. But I guess the better question for you, Dan, is like, what does this say about Pasta? That he's playing through this, that it's not a good team, that he knows he is the alpha on the team, for lack of a better term, not the captain, but the alpha on the team at this point, that he is a top 5 player in the league and that he kind of needs to push through this to set an example.
I think I love that Pasternak's on our team, and you kind of see what he's going through. He's definitely not himself right now, and that will bring up is he's still injured, and he most likely is. And I think you look at the superstars on the Maple Leafs and see how like the temper tantrums they throw, and I see sometimes you hear them mic'd up on the bench and you hear them in press conferences, but I just look at like what they got going on in Toronto and how their superstars react to things, and just seeing the way Pastrnak handle them, it just night and day. He'll go the high road. He won't cause any controversy. He'll play on the third line. He'll play on the first. He'll play on the second. There was a funny stat earlier in the year when he scored a power play goal when it was Pastrnak assisted by Tanner Jeannot and Mark Kastelic. He just wants to do what's best for the team. He's not, complaining that he hasn't been named captain yet. He's not complaining that he's on the third line. He's trying to play, injured. And I think the reason why he may be doing that is I think he knows there's not too much time left in this season. I think all the players from last year saw what happened last year and realized like, if we don't play good, it's just going to happen again. So I think
they
one
said
of the
it earlier
reasons
this
why,
year too, Dan. They said that. Remember, Geeky said that
Geeky.
in the first losing streak, and so
Yeah.
they know.
It's in the back of their minds, and I think that may be one reason why Pastrnak may be playing injured right now, is he knows like if they can't get going, before mid-January, or if they're not in a playoff spot at a certain point, then he knows some of these guys are going to get traded. That's his teammates, and he doesn't want to see that happen. So I think he's just trying to put it all on the line right now, and his goals aren't what they used to be. He's being unselfish, and I kind of wish he was a little more selfish. Now, the first line with Pasta, Geeky, and Lindholm hasn't been what the Bruins fans had hoped it's going to be. So there's been some line shuffling, but as much as I want to see Geeky do well, I think you just don't want to, ignore Pastrnak at all, and just hopefully Geeky gets 50 and Pastrnak just is on the third line. I think you need Pastrnak to be David Pastrnak if you want the Bruins to do well this year and in the future. So I love how he's being unselfish, but at the same time, I think the coaching should kind of take a look at this and see how they can maximize David Pastrnak to be the best player he can be. And yeah, I'm happy he's on our team, but he hasn't been himself lately, and I think he's just kind of putting it all out there, and hopefully he doesn't get re-injured at all. But I appreciate what he's doing, and we'll see how it goes this upcoming road trip. But hopefully he doesn't get re-injured, or the Bruins will be very bad without him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Still on pace for now for his fourth straight 100-point season. If he misses another handful of games, he won't be on pace for that anymore. Because he's missed, I think, 5 this year. I think that's right. Minus 12, which like, I mean, maybe I'm being too light on Pastrnak, but like with a team like this to be a -12, he's never been a minus player in his career for a full season. Even last year, he broke even at 0. It's almost tough for me to blame him, especially not playing 100%. This does bring up one last thing about Pasta though, and it relates to the tanking. Here you see a guy who is still continuing to be at an elite level, like top of the league level, with not a lot of talent around him. And he's not bitching about it. He's not holding himself out of a game when he's only 70% rather than 100%. He's not trying to force his way out. He's playing hurt. He's playing through it. Doesn't have the captaincy on his sweater, but he's acting like it. And that's when you think, man, dude's going to be 30 in May. You're counting down the years of his prime on one hand here. And you don't know if the Bruins are going to be able to be a Stanley Cup contender while he's still at the peak of his powers, which could only be another 2 or 3 seasons, I would say, at most. And that's where it gets tough for some Bruins fans, I would say, as it pertains to rooting for the tank. Like the backside, the flip side of the coin of rooting for the tank and seeing what it can do for you is, are we going to waste David Pasternak's prime entirely? Now, some guys, their prime goes to like 34, 35. Like that does happen. But do you think like that's a danger, that's something that's in the back of the minds of the Bruins front office when they're thinking about tanking?
I think they're thinking of everything, and I think they thought of it last deadline, and they didn't think last deadline, hey, David Pastrnak's 28 right now. Should we just keep Marchand and Coyle and see if we can go for it this year? They said, F that. We're gonna tank because we think that's what will be best. And I think the Bruins fans should already see the benefits of what last year was. If you're watching World Juniors, you see 2 Bruins prospects on that USA team that wouldn't be on the Bruins team if they didn't sell at the deadline. They were not going to take James Hagens 7th overall if they didn't trade off 4 or 5 guys last year. They wouldn't end up with the 7th pick to take him. They probably would have been in the teens. And you look at Zellers. You don't have Zellers if you don't trade Coyle. So you already see the benefits of what selling at the deadline was. So I think when you look at that, I think that's the perfect blueprint of what they should do this year. James Hagens will be playing with David Pastrnak hopefully next year, and that will help David Pastrnak in his prime. So would the Bruins losing the playoffs last year, would that have helped, David Pastrnak, or would James Hagens help Pastrnak, win another cup, win a cup? So I think we look at what happened last year, and I think it's kind of symbolic that the Bruins are on a 5-game losing streak right now, and they have 2 prospects who they got basically last year because of their tanking, doing very well at World Juniors right now. So I just think it's kind of symbolic how it's happening at the same time right now. The Bruins doing bad, and their prospects are doing good at the World Junior stage, and I don't think you're a bad fan for rooting for them not to do that good this year, because it will end up paying its dividends at the draft next year. You could get another James Hagens type player or 2, and you just can't sign people in free agency anymore. That the good free agents don't reach free agency anymore, or you got to overpay for the ones that do reach free agency. So if you're a Bruins fan, I think you should root for Sweeney to do exactly what he did last year. That they took a 1 step forward, I believe, and hopefully they take 2 steps forward. They don't take 1 step back.
I'm interested to hear what the fans think about this. The whole tanking thing, David Pastrnak in his prime. Let us know in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. Of course, you find us wherever you find your podcast as well. You can tweet at us, Garden Level Pod on Twitter, and you can find us on TikTok as well. So I would love to hear what the fans think about.
Tell us what we're doing bad. We had someone tell us. We had someone tell us that this channel needs some work, and that was it.
It's just unhelpful. Constructive. Yeah, it's just unhelpful. If you've got a gripe, just let us know. Well, maybe we'll.
We need to work on it.
Yes, yeah, we'll just work on it, and I will promise
we're working.
We'll work on it. Like we're gonna.
To that guy that commented that, we're working on it.
We're working on it. Thank you, Chief. Thank you. You talked about World Juniors. Let's talk about World Juniors, because if you're looking for something to be excited about with the Boston Bruins right now, do yourselves a favor. Don't watch the Bruins, or at least don't go looking for it there. But tune into the NHL Network. Unfortunately, no TSN for us, and watch Team USA at the World Juniors. That, my friends, is how you get excited for the Boston Bruins. James Hagens, of course, top 10 pick, playing in his second World Juniors. He was great last year. He's awesome through the first 2 games right now, as the time of this recording. He's probably been the USA's best offensive player, but he's not their leading scorer. He's not their leading goal scorer. He's not the second leading goal scorer in the tournament. He doesn't have 4 points and 3 goals in 2 games. But rest assured, that is a different Boston Bruins prospect. Dan, I know you're tuned in this year. I know you're into the World Juniors this year. Is this the year of Will Zellers?
It is, baby. And I think we gotta credit the Garden Level pod for this, because when we had a guest on last week, we said, "Is this gonna be the Will Zellers coming out party?" And it has been. He's been breaking out, and I believe he has 3 goals on 3 shots. Is that? I believe someone tweeted that,
Sounds right.
and I think that might be true. So he's shooting 100% right now.
Mm.
That's like Morgan Geeky percentage right there. He's doing great, and I think he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. He was left off the initial roster. Bruins fans, the state of Massachusetts and the state of North Dakota were shocked and not happy about that. And I think he's come back. He started off on the 4th line. Now he's on the 3rd line. How awesome would that be if he ends up on a line with Hagens at some point? That would make Bruins fans.
I'd love to see it at this tournament. We're not going to, but I would love to see it at this tournament.
That would be crazy. But this has been great for Bruins fans so far. Hagens has been skating well. He hasn't scored a goal yet, but he's been contributing. And Zellers, 3 goals. I think he's the MVP so far for this team. He's scoring when they need it, and he has a great shot. He even has an assist. He's working in his Cy Young numbers right there.
Yep.
This has been an exciting tournament so far for Team USA. They're 2-0. They're playing today as well. And, obviously, when you look at these tournaments, you always got to look at Team Canada as well. And they've had some interesting games so far. They've been causing some controversy. They've been taunting their opponents, not shaking hands after the game. There was a penalty last game. They got a 5-minute misconduct. So the Canadians got the power play and ended up scoring, and then went to overtime. They scored on the power play as well in overtime and won 2-1 against their arch nemesis Latvia. So it'll be an interesting one. I think this tournament's living up to the hype. McKenna's playing well, future Bruin hopefully. So we'll see how the rest of the tournament goes. But if you're a Bruins fan, you gotta be excited with how well it's gone so far.
I mean, for sure, dude. Like Hagens is just toying with everyone else. Like he looks the alpha on the ice when he's out there for Team USA. And like Zellers, what more can you say? We got to toot our own horn a little bit, Dan. We were on this. We were talking about 3 or 4 weeks ago, being like, why is Will Zellers not on the initial roster? And we kind of forced the issue. I think the powers that be in USA Hockey were listening and got him that late invite to camp. And this I think is going to be one of the best things to happen to Will Zellers' career, what's going on in the World Juniors right now. And I'll tell you why. Like, not only the goal scoring, that goal on Saturday night was incredible. Everyone's like, oh, it's bad goaltending. Like, dude, how often do you see that in the NHL these days? Like, no angle, guy throws it at the goalie's ear and it goes in. Like, that's, at this point, we got to say that's just skill. Like, that is some incredible goal scoring ability that Will Zellers has. But beyond the goals, because he does that everywhere. Scored 44 in the USHL, has 10 and 15 games right now for North Dakota, has 3 and 2 games for the USA. It's beyond that. Because here's what I want to read from Sports Illustrated. Zellers is a two-way force for the United States. He's not the biggest player, but he has a determined mindset on the ice and an extremely hardworking motor. He pressures the puck hard on defense. He's just as aggressive with the puck on his stick or as he is in the offensive zone. The United States have immense talent in their lineup, Zellers included, but it's the small things he does that makes him a key part of this team. And it is something that you notice if you watch. Like, you're like, oh, I don't think this kid's going to like be in for any Selkies his first couple of years of the NHL or anything. But you're like, all right, he doesn't look like the goal scorer who's just put in at the last minute. Like, he looks like he's doing some little things on the defensive side for Team USA. And that is what's really impressed me the most, is he is doing it on both ends. And that's why I think the development is going to be so key. Like, here's a guy who was invited late and he had to scratch and claw for a spot on this team. And almost always when it comes down to that, especially with a team like that's as talented as this, you've got to do the little things. And Will Zellers probably hasn't had to do the little things a lot in his career because he's such a damn good goal scorer. Like, I don't think they were asking him to do that at Shattuck St. Mary's or with the Green Bay Gamblers, but he's doing it at both ends in all three zones. This trade, as we've talked about so many times, for number 13, Charlie Coyle, looks like it's going to be a steal. And it's not because of Casey Middlestat.
It makes you think how well Zellers would have done if he was put on that Avalanche team in a year or two. He would be lethal. But what we said earlier in the pod too, currently our top two goal scorers don't play the PK. So to see Zellers doing it on both ends, that's got to be a great sign for Bruins fans because you know how important that is. Also, I'd like to point out on the Team USA depth chart, it listed Zellers as 6 foot. I'm not sure if you noticed that. I'm like, I guess he grew 2 inches
been hitting the
in 3
growth
months.
spurt, man. Yeah.
Will Zellers grew 2 inches in 3 months. That's great news too, as
2
well.
2 inches, which is a lot. 2 inches is a lot, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot.
And then, honestly, we haven't been able to see. I know we said last podcast if we were able to watch Bernard, because some Bruins fans don't even know if he actually exists. Hasn't been playing yet. He's been scratched.
Still no confirmation.
But maybe if depending on how they play, he'll get some games in later on in the tournament or injury. But we cannot confirm that he is a person yet. But he was scratched, and you know who else was scratched? Jake DeBrusk. I had to bring that in here at some point in this podcast.
Yeah.
Jake DeBrusk was scratched.
Something about
Bruins.
effort. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not producing. Huh. Who could have saw that coming?
Yep. But I had to get that in at some point, and I was like, you know what? Mentioning Blunar being scratched was going to be my cue to plug in the DeBrusk scratching. But yeah, DeBrusk has made his name come up a few times in Boston this year, whether it was being late to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, or now he's being scratched again, but for a different team. But yeah, I wonder what Bruins fans think if they think we should have re-signed him, or if they would be still on this team. I'm curious what they would say.
I would like to hear from the fans on that if we could. I think that is interesting. And like, DeBrusk is kind of an interesting case real quick, because it's not like, we talk about these things and it came up a few times with the Bruins and kind of hushed whispers, right? Because you had Chara and Bergeron in the room and a lot didn't get out. But like, he's not a head case. I don't think he's like really pampered necessarily, but he's in that middle where like, you're kind of hoping he's a leader. He's been in the league a decade almost. You're kind of hoping he's a leader, and he's really not. And he doesn't produce at a rate to be paid almost $8 million a year. It's certainly not happening right now for a bad Vancouver team. And it didn't happen probably at the rate it should have with the Bruins on 5-on-5. And so like, these things just kind of keep popping up. And his dad played in the NHL and works in NHL media. And so like, that doesn't help him when it comes to stories like this. So Jake DeBrusk, our old pal, back in the mentions of the Garden Level Pod. Long may it continue. Let's get one last thing down here, Dan, since it is the last week of 2025, which has undoubtedly not been a good year for the Boston Bruins. Great year for Morgan Geekie. But it's that time of year where we think of our resolutions. Dan, do you have a New Year's resolution for the Boston Bruins?
Can I name more than one?
I'll allow it. Yeah.
We hit on this earlier in the pod, but I think a good New Year's resolution for the Bruins would be taking less penalties, because it's better when you have 5 men on the ice than 4 or even 3 because we've had 3 men on the ice at a
This is
good
really
amount of
going
times
against
this
the Norman
season,
Dale thing, but yeah,
especially against
okay.
the Canadians. But I think the Bruins resolution, taking less penalties, would be a good one. I think next year, with how it's gone in the past, I think we should make more trades with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that would be a good resolution. Like,
Good
we've only,
one.
instead of just doing one, let's do more. Let's build on that.
Let's make the first call to them. Like
yeah,
for every one of them, it's
yeah,
kind of like the Red Sox right now. They're not spending any money and they're only dealing with GMs who used to work for them. Right. It's been Pittsburgh with Charrington and the other guy, and
mhm,
Heim in St. Louis. Like maybe
mhm,
that's what you do with the Leafs. You're just like,
yep,
we could really go for, this center because we really need a center and he's available. Like he just got traded, but let's go like a Marco Rossi. But it's like, you know what? We should probably get a winger from Toronto instead. It's just going to end up better. We're just going to
yeah.
get a more talented player for less. So maybe that is the way to go.
So yeah, trading more with the Maple Leafs, less penalty minutes,
Mm.
and I would say you could attribute this to your personal life. Spending. You want to budget yourself and not spend that much money. You want
Don't
to
need to go
make
for
sure
the
you're
cap.
saving money if you don't have to spend it. And I think we can attribute that to the Bruins as well. Let's spend less money on bad players specifically. Let's enjoy some cap space. Uh, I said it a few episodes ago, but I think Don Sweeney is allergic to cap space,
Hates it. Yeah.
and he just hates it. So I think a good resolution would be, instead of signing bad players, just don't sign them at all, and let's have some cap space because it's useful these days.
I've heard it is. I've heard other teams like having that kind of flexibility. Certainly, if we're going to keep comparing it to other Boston sports teams, I think the Patriots are in a good spot, having more cap space than anyone in the league. The Bruins should try that at some point. If you're going to suck anyway, you know what I mean? If you're
Hmm.
going to suck anyway, you might as well try that. New Year's can I do one overlap? Can I do one overlap from my Christmas wish list to New Year's resolution?
I'll allow it.
Thank you. New Year's resolution: just paint the seats yellow. Just put the yellow cushions in the seats. I since we did that episode, I have thought about that a lot. Where I'm like, you know what? That bugs me way more than it should. But like, just what? Why not, man? Like, why not? And I know in the 2000s, the early 2000s, they switched it because they were getting sparse crowds. And as much as this team sucks, you go to a lot of games. I'm starting to get back going to games. They do punch the place out. Most expensive tickets in America for this sport, and they still do punch the place out. So that's not really the issue. So let's make them yellow seats. That's all. Let's make them
What
yellow
about
seats.
what about this? So you know how Fenway has the red seat? What if
Mm.
TD Garden has the yellow seat? Paint paint a yellow seat up in like section 315 or somewhere up there. Just paint one seat
Make up
yellow
a story about
and
it.
just say, like, make up a story about, say Zdeno Chara shot a puck up there in 2008 or something like that. There you go.
That's good. It's basically what the Red Sox did, and
And
now
then
it's a
charge
tourist
charge more
attraction.
money for it, and then
Yeah,
Jacobs can charge more money for that seat,
I'm seeing it.
the yellow
I'm
seat.
seeing the vision here. I truly am. The other resolution I have, and it's something we're going to talk a lot more about in the episodes leading up to March, is don't be sentimental. And I got to give the credit where it's due. The Bruins were not sentimental last year when it came to the trade deadline. It's like the first time in our lifetimes we haven't seen the Bruins be overly sentimental. They like when guys retire Bruins, even though it doesn't help them much. I don't think it helped David Krejci much, but it certainly, I think, is going to help the Bruins in the future that Brad Marchand does not retire a Bruin, or at least is not a Bruin right now. As much as that sucks, I do think that is going to help the team down the line. But you have a chance to flip a lot of guys, and you kind of built your team in not free agency, but the moves you made in the summer with an eye towards that with someone like Arvidsson. You could try with Korpisalo. Middlestat will be a guy. We know Zaka will be a guy.
Peak.
And Peak will be a guy. Yep. That's another one who's on an expiring And, you might even make some tough calls on Mason Lowry. You might take some tough calls on Matthew Patra, or maybe it's not as tough because he's not playing in the league this year. There's not a lot of untouchables, I don't think, on this Bruins team. And that, again, that's something we'll talk about as we get closer to it. But that's my last New Year's resolution, is just don't get sentimental. You are on the right path. And as weird as this last season and a half has been, you've actually kind of done almost everything right in terms of your future, right? You sucked last year. You sold off. You got some good deals for it. You got some good assets for it. And you can do the same thing again this year. And so far it's hitting. Zellers has been good. Letourneau has been much better than last year. Hagens has obviously been as advertised. You're getting some of your long shot prospects having good years. Vasek Blinar is playing in Hockey East next year. Chris Pelosi at Quinnipiac is having a good year. So just keep riding that. Just keep riding that wave. That's my last New Year's resolution for him.
Sweeney should put up 6 words in his office. Do what you did last year.
That's really deep, man. He'll probably just put up like believe instead, like the Ted Lasso thing. I imagine that's what's in his office. I imagine Don Sweeney's got a lot of like inspirational, nice messages around the office. He's just such a cheery guy. You know what I mean? He's just such a happy-go-lucky, great guy to be in the elevator with. I'm sure he's just got like landscapes with, eat, pray, love kind of shit all over it. He's just too cheery to not have that. But anyway, Dan, I think that's it. We're going to be staying up late this week watching the team. I mean, that's easy for you. It's not as easy for me. We're going to be staying up late. You're going to see him out in Calgary and Edmonton and these other places on the trip I haven't quite looked up yet because I don't look past 2 games with this team. Vancouver makes plenty of sense. If you're already in the area. So we will obviously have that for you next week. Guys, get in the comments section. Get constructive if you need to in the comment section below. Like and subscribe on YouTube. That helps us out a ton. This channel continues to grow. We're still in early days, but it is growing rapidly. Find us, of course, on Twitter, on TikTok, and wherever you get your podcasts as well. For Dan Conlon, I'm Cam Stuart. We'll see you on the next edition of a little ditty that we like to call the Garden Level Podcast.